Alright, friends, before we dive into this story, do me a favor. If you love stories about firearms that have a detective trail, economic puzzles, and a piece of living history you can hold in your hands, hit subscribe and the bell. This is important to me because I pour my heart into this material. And at the end of the video, there's a key question for you, and your opinion in the comments will be crucial. I promise, it's going to be intense. Let's go. You know what's lying on my table right now? Not just a piece of cold metal. A whole era lies there. A contradiction lies there. A legend lies there. Forged from steel, politics, war, and even one of the most notorious political assassinations of the 20th century. This is the Beretta Model 1934 pistol. And what if I told you that this seemingly unremarkable Italian piece of steel is a key to understanding how the world order works, how historical artifacts resurface, and why we collectors sometimes behave like obsessed people? Would you believe me? I'm going to prove it now. It didn't start with it. It all started with the smell of old paper and printer's ink. The 70s and 80s. Back then, I practically lived in shotgun news, now firearms news. It wasn't just a magazine. It was a treasure trove, a portal to another time. The pages were bursting with ads, surplus rifles, used pistols, ammunition, accessories. You see, the major wars of the century had just ended, and the giant arsenals accumulated by states had become unnecessary. They were sold off like old tractors, and it was a golden age for guys like me. I got sick with a specific caliber back then, the .32 ACP, or 765mm, as we call it. It was an elegant, European, gentleman's caliber. Not the most powerful, but with history. And I set myself a task to collect all the pistols of this caliber, produced in the first half of the 20th century. It's like collecting stamps from a certain country for a certain year. You catch the spirit of the time. You see how different engineers in different countries solved the same problem. I had the Belgian FN 1910, the Czech Vesto, the French Mat, the American Colt 1903. Prices? Laughable now. From $75 to a couple of $100. Today, just a Colt in good condition can fetch $1,500. But back then, it was simple. You came, chose, paid, and there it was, a piece of history in your hands. Alas, time is merciless, and from that first collection, only the map remains with me. The rest left for various reasons, but the memory remains. And in parallel, another idea was brewing to collect .380 ACP 9x17 pistols from the World War II era. More powerful, more substantial. The first swallow was the famous Walther PPK, but it didn't go further. The market, that living organism, began to change. The flow of military surplus, that giant historical downpour, had practically dried up by the early 2000s. States had sold off their stockpiles, prices had skyrocketed, and the golden age, it seemed, was over forever. And then suddenly, quite recently, as if from oblivion, they appeared again. Beretta Model 34s. Italian veterans. And my heart skipped a beat, like an old soldier hearing a familiar command. It was a sign, because with this company, with Beretta, I have over 7 years of my life connected. I worked there. I know their philosophy, their approach to metal. And here it is, the product of their old school, lying in front of me. This isn't just a purchase. It's a homecoming to the roots. But to understand what exactly we are holding in our hands, we need to rewind the tape even further. To 1915, World War I was raging. The Italian army urgently needed a pistol, and Beretta gives them the Model 1915 for the powerful 9mm Glisenti cartridge. But the army brass are a conservative bunch. They didn't like the closed design. There were problems with extracting cartridges. And Beretta's engineers make a night's move. They take the same model, but remake it for the weaker .32 caliber, and most importantly, they make the top of the slide open. The Model 1915. 19 is born, reliable as a hammer. It served the army until 31. Next evolution. 32. The world is changing. Tactics are changing. An intermediate caliber appears, the .380 ACP 9mm Cordo. Short. It's more powerful than the .32, but more compact than the 9mm Parabellum. Beretta takes the old model and remakes it again. The barrel changes, an external hammer appears, the Model 32 is born. But it was just a prototype, a test of the waters. And in 34, the order came that determined the fate of this weapon for decades to come. The Italian armed forces said, Make us an army pistol. Reliable. Simple. For the .380 cartridge. And the engineers took the Model 32 and reinforced it. In the literal sense. That's how the hero of our story was born, the Beretta Model 1934. There's a historical curiosity here that I puzzled over for a long time. The Army and Police received the pistol in .380, but the Navy Regia Marina and the Air Force Regia Aeronautica were supplied with the same model, but in the weaker .32 caliber. Why? I haven't found a definitive answer. But let's speculate. A pilot in a cramped cockpit needed a compact, light pistol, mainly for a last line of defense or to avoid capture. A sailor on a ship also, nowhere to go. But an infantryman or a carabinieri could afford a heavier, more powerful weapon. It's just my guess, but it has a right to exist. And now, let's hold this history in our hands. Literally, if I had to describe this Italian with one word, I would say sturdy. Not elegant, not ergonomic, but sturdy. You get the feeling you could throw it off a cliff, it would clatter down the rocks, and you'd pick it up, dust it off, and it would fire. It's a tank of a weapon. But you pay for this sturdiness with weight. 652 grams. For a compact pistol firing an intermediate cartridge, that's a lot. The mechanic's a classic. Single action, exposed hammer. You cock it and feel a powerful, resilient spring. There will be no problems with hard primers here. It will punch through them for sure. The safety rotary, 180 degrees. Safe, reliable, operated with the thumb of one hand. The rear sight adjustable for windage, the front sight fixed. This is a weapon for those who value simplicity and reliability above all else. And now the most interesting part. The grips. Remember, I talked about reinforcement. Remove these modest plastic grit panels, and you'll see sheet steel. Yes, the plastic is reinforced with steel. This is not just because. It's an engineering calculation for durability, to ensure the grips don't crack from an impact or a fall. On each panel the famous letters PB. Pietro Beretta, the founder of the dynasty, the master's signature. My specimen is not quite a war contemporary. Its serial number says it was made between 1967 and 1973, but it is that exact model, precisely the same as those carried by Italian officers in Ethiopia, in North Africa, on the Eastern Front. The conveyor belt worked for decades, and now we approach the most important part, the shot. The face-to-face meeting with history. I loaded the magazine with Federal 95-grain FMJ rounds. I expected the heavy pistol to eat the recoil. How wrong I was. The shot, and a sharp, biting, painful jolt in the hand. The recoil wasn't the familiar tipping force, but some kind of sharp, concentrated blow to the webbing between the thumb and index finger. I've shot magnums, large Colts, but this recoil was special, unpleasant, heavy slide, particular balance. I don't know. But it was surprise number one. Surprise number two, the trigger. It was heavy, gritty, with noticeable stages. A measurement showed about 8 pounds, almost 3.6 kilograms. That's a lot for a pistol. The slide was also hard to retract unless you cocked the hammer first. But here's the paradox. With all this unfriendliness, the pistol shot accurately. I sat down at the table, set up a sandbag rest. At a distance of 25 feet, about 7.5 meters, I started shooting groups. The first group 5 shots fit into 1.33 inches 34 millimeters. Take out one flyer and you get under an inch 24 millimeters. For an 80-year-old design with such a trigger, that's phenomenal. The second group a bit larger, the third a bit more still. I attribute the increasing spread to hand fatigue from the unfamiliar recoil and that awful trigger. The cases ejected straight down and landed right at my feet. The pistol was clearly designed for two-handed shooting, from a stance, not from a rest. I also tried modern self-defense rounds. Federal Hydroshock. Feeding was flawless, accuracy the same. Conclusion: as a self-defense tool at close range, this veteran is more than viable. After some training, of course. And here we come to the main question. WHY? Why now, in the 21st century, buy this heavy-triggered historical artifact? There are several answers, and they are layered, like a pie. The first layer is practical. Yes, it can be used for self-defense. The .380 ACP cartridge with modern bullets is a serious argument. The pistol is absurdly reliable. Carrying it is a bit heavy, especially in a historical leather holster, but possible. It's a last resort weapon that won't let you down. The second layer is collectible. It's a beautiful, iconic specimen. The markings on the frame will tell you its fate. RE, Regio Esercito, Royal Army. RM, Regia Marina, Navy. RA, Regia Aeronautica, Air Force. PS, Pubblica Sicurezza, Police. Each mark is a scar of history. But there is a third layer, a dark one. Tragic. The one that turns this pistol from a historical artifact into a grim symbol. Remember this serial number, 606,824. The pistol with this number was manufactured in 1937. It went through the Italian invasion of Abyssinia, Ethiopia, ended up in the hands of an Italian officer, then was captured as a trophy by a British officer. And on January 30th, 1948, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated with it. The killer Natharam Godse, a Hindu extremist. How did an Italian trophy of a British officer end up in India? History is silent. The investigation concluded that the assassination was organized by Hindu nationalists. But let's use our heads and recall the context. The British Empire was cracking at the seams. India was striving for independence, and the main symbol of this struggle was precisely Gandhi with his philosophy of non-violence. And there was one very influential Briton who hated Gandhi with all his heart, Winston Churchill. He publicly called him a half-naked fakir and believed that India's independence would be the beginning of the end of the empire. And then the murder weapon appears. Not a British revolver, not an Indian homemade gun, but an Italian pistol, captured by a British officer. The investigation was closed quickly. The guilty were found. But the question, and who was the real sponsor, hung in the air. A coincidence? Possibly. But in big politics, as in firearms, convenient coincidences like that are too rare. This pistol is not just a piece of iron. It is material evidence of one of the darkest political secrets of the 20th century. Holding it in your hands, you are holding that secret. So, our long story is coming to an end. From the post-war pages of shotgun news to mysterious assassinations and big imperial politics, the Beretta 34 is a bridge. A bridge between eras, between continents, between our quiet collector passions and the roar of world history. And now the promised question for you, my dear viewers. A question that keeps me awake at night. What do you think was the appearance of this particular Italian trophy pistol in the hands of Gandhi's assassin, a chain of random events or part of a large, undisclosed game? Could British intelligence services or individual powerful figures have been involved in eliminating the half-naked fakir to preserve the empire? Write your versions, assumptions, thoughts in the comments. Let's have a historical detective discussion. This is important because history doesn't end, it continues in objects like these. And in our debates. If this deep dive into history and metal touched a nerve, put a like on this video. It's important for me to know that such topics interest you. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Dozens more such stories await us, where every screw, every mark, every serial number is a cipher that you and I have to decipher. Thank you for staying with me until the end. See you in the next video.